In the relentless pursuit of human achievement, 5 ordinary people pushed their bodies beyond the breaking point, transforming what seemed like harmless personal challenges into deadly nightmares that shocked their communities forever. It became a chilling reminder that the line between triumph and tragedy can disappear in a single terrifying moment. It was July 15th, 2015, when 28-year-old Orion Ford decided to test his limits in the backyard pool of his Austin, Texas home. The software engineer had always been fascinated by human endurance, spending countless hours researching static apnea techniques online. His methodical personality, which served him well in debugging code, now drove him to pursue a personal breath-holding record. Orion had been practicing for 2 weeks, gradually extending his underwater time using CO2 tolerance tables he found on freediving forums. His supportive younger brother Liam, a 24-year-old college student studying journalism, had documented each attempt with his phone camera. The brothers shared a competitive streak, always pushing each other to excel. That sweltering afternoon, Orion invited his neighbor Marta Ruiz to supervise his final attempt. The 32-year-old registered nurse lived 3 houses down and had become a close family friend. Her cautious nature and medical training made her the perfect safety observer. Marta positioned herself poolside with a long safety pole and a flotation ring. The plan seemed foolproof. Orion would perform his usual warm-up sequence, then attempt to break his personal best of 3 minutes and 5 seconds. He had established hand signals with Marta for regular check-ins, but his recent sessions had included several breath holds over 3 minutes during warm-ups, giving him a misleading confidence that his body could tolerate longer times. After completing 3 successful warm-up holds, Orion began his rapid breathing pattern, hyperventilating to suppress his body's natural CO2 warning system. This technique, while common among amateur breath holders, creates a dangerous window where oxygen levels can drop critically low without the usual urge to breathe. At 2:45, Orion tapped the pool edge, signaling he was okay. His face remained calm beneath the surface, legs floating gently behind him. Marta watched intently, noting the time on her waterproof watch. The afternoon sun created dancing patterns on the pool bottom as Orion remained motionless. By 3:40, subtle warning signs appeared. Orion's shoulders began small, involuntary twitches, a phenomenon known as samba in freediving circles. These minor convulsions indicated his brain was beginning to suffer from oxygen deprivation, but they were barely noticeable to the untrained eye. At 3:55, disaster struck silently. Orion's hand slipped from the coping as his body went completely limp. The hypoxic blackout was instantaneous and complete. His face remained submerged as his unconscious form drifted slightly toward the pool's center. Marta called his name urgently, but received no response. Precious seconds ticked by as she and Liam realized something was terribly wrong. They pulled Orion's lifeless body from the water, his lips already showing the earliest faint discoloration consistent with emerging hypoxia, though not the deep blue seen in prolonged arrests. Water dribbled from his mouth as Marta immediately began rescue breathing on the pool deck. Despite her quick CPR efforts, Orion's pulse weakened and then disappeared entirely. Emergency medical services arrived within 7 minutes, but the damage was already done. The paramedics suctioned aspirated water from his airway and provided advanced life support, but Orion's brain had been deprived of oxygen for too long. At the hospital, doctors confirmed severe hypoxic brain injury. Chest x-rays revealed water aspiration, and blood tests showed dangerous metabolic acidosis. Despite every medical intervention available, Orion Ford was pronounced dead that evening, another victim of shallow water blackout. The family later filled in the pool and placed a small memorial stone in their backyard. Local swimming instructors began sharing Orion's story as a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers of breath holding without proper training and safety protocols. But Orion's tragedy was just the beginning of a deadly pattern that would emerge across America. 16 months later, at a community center charity event, another ambitious soul would discover that even the most innocent-seeming competitions can turn fatal when competitive spirit meets unexpected danger. It was November 12, 2016, when 29-year-old Elodie Vance arrived at the Portland Community Center, excited to participate in what she believed would be a harmless charity bake-off. The cheerful bakery assistant had always been known for her generous spirit and competitive nature. traits that made her popular among co-workers at Sweet Dreams Bakery, where she decorated wedding cakes with meticulous precision. Elodie had signed up for the fundraising event to support the local food bank, never imagining that her eagerness to help others would lead to tragedy. Her bubbly personality had drawn many friends to the event, including her fellow contestant Jenna Lee, a 29-year-old marketing coordinator who shared Elodie's competitive streak. The event organizer, 45-year-old Rick Dalton, had coordinated dozens of community fundraisers over the years. His jovial demeanor made him a natural choice to oversee the cupcake eating contest. Rick had carefully reviewed safety protocols with all contestants, emphasizing the importance of chewing thoroughly and stopping if anyone experienced difficulty. Elodie had practiced at home, managing to eat 2 cupcakes in quick succession, but she had never attempted the rapid consumption required for the 3-minute challenge. Her friends often joked about her tiny throat and how she always ate more slowly than others, a characteristic that should have served as a warning. The community center buzzed with excitement as approximately 60 spectators gathered around the contest area. Rick had positioned water cups at each contestant's table and briefed volunteers on choking response procedures. The atmosphere was festive, with families cheering for their favorite participants. When the timer started, Elodie dove into the challenge with determination. The dense, heavily frosted cupcakes proved more difficult to consume quickly than she had anticipated. She managed 3 mini-sized cupcakes in under a minute, taking minimal sips of water between bites to maintain her pace against Jenna and the other contestants. At her 4th cupcake, Elodie experienced a brief coughing fit, but continued after a small sip of water. Crumbs were visible around her lips as she pushed forward, driven by her competitive nature and desire to contribute to the charity's success. Disaster struck during her 6th cupcake. As Elodie attempted to swallow a large portion quickly, a compacted food bolus became lodged at her laryngeal inlet, creating a complete upper airway obstruction. She immediately grasped her throat, unable to produce any effective cough or sound. Jenna noticed first, alerting Rick as Elodie's lips began turning dusky blue. The trained volunteer rushed over and performed back blows, followed by abdominal thrusts, and another volunteer began preparing to start CPR in case she lost consciousness. Cyanosis deepened around Elodie's mouth as her body fought desperately for oxygen. Emergency medical services arrived within minutes of Rick's 911 call. Paramedics performed laryngoscopy and used McGill forceps to extract the food bolus from her airway, but precious time had already passed. Elodie had progressed to pulseless electrical activity arrest from prolonged oxygen deprivation. CPR was initiated immediately on scene, with paramedics working frantically to restore circulation. They achieved a brief return of spontaneous circulation during transport, but the damage from extended hypoxia was already catastrophic. Her brain had been deprived of oxygen for too long. At the hospital, emergency physicians confirmed severe anoxic brain injury. Despite successful airway clearance and mechanical ventilation, she entered post-cardiac arrest syndrome, a predictable cascade of organ dysfunction caused by prolonged hypoxia. The medical team exhausted every available intervention, but Elodie's condition continued deteriorating. Later that same day, surrounded by devastated family members and friends, Elodie Vance was pronounced dead from asphyxiation caused by complete airway obstruction. The vibrant young woman who had entered the contest to help feed hungry families had become another tragic statistic. The community center immediately banned all speed-eating contests and implemented comprehensive choking response training for staff members. The charity established a scholarship in Elodie's memory, focusing on food safety education. The tragedy at the Portland Community Center would soon be overshadowed by an even more devastating incident. In the heat of an Oklahoma spring, a runner's determination to achieve personal glory would prove that the human body has limits that should never be tested, no matter how noble the cause. It was May 21, 2017, when 34-year-old Hollis King laced up his running shoes for what would become his final race. The ambitious insurance adjuster from Tulsa had spent months preparing for his first marathon. Driven by a desire to prove that middle-aged office workers could achieve athletic greatness, his methodical approach to training mirrored his professional attention to detail, but nothing could have prepared him for the brutal conditions that awaited. Hollis worked long hours investigating claims and had recently gone through a difficult divorce. Running became his escape, channeling his frustration into something positive. His dedication impressed his running partner, Derek Shaw, a 41-year-old construction foreman who had completed several marathons. Derek's supportive nature pushed Hollis to set an ambitious goal of finishing under 4 hours. The weather forecast should have been a warning. Meteorologists predicted temperatures reaching 92 degrees Fahrenheit with bright sunshine. For an inexperienced marathoner who had trained primarily in cooler spring weather, these conditions represented a dangerous challenge that Hollis underestimated. Race volunteer Tina Brooks, a 38-year-old elementary school teacher, positioned herself at the halfway point with water cups and ice packs, though the race lacked proper cooling equipment like cold water immersion tubs. The race began at dawn, with over 800 participants. Hollis felt confident as he and Derek settled into their planned 9-minute-per-mile pace. The early miles passed smoothly, with Hollis maintaining good form and staying hydrated. His training had prepared him for the distance, but not for the rising heat. By mile 10, temperatures soared past 85 degrees. Hollis began sweating heavily, his shirt completely soaked. He poured water over his head at each station, but the relief was temporary. Derek noticed his friend's increasingly labored breathing, but assumed it was normal marathon fatigue. The turning point came around mile 15. Hollis's pace began to slow noticeably, and his usual steady gait became choppy. His face flushed bright red, and sweat poured from every pore. Derek encouraged him to walk through the next aid station, but Hollis insisted on maintaining his target pace. At mile 18, warning signs became unmistakable. Hollis stumbled slightly, his coordination clearly compromised. When Derek spoke to him, his responses were slurred and confused. His skin felt burning hot to the touch, indicating his body's cooling system was failing catastrophically. The final miles became a nightmare. Hollis's mental state deteriorated rapidly as his core body temperature soared past 104 degrees, likely climbing into the 106 to 108 degrees Fahrenheit range, typical of severe exertional heat stroke. At mile 22, he became disoriented about his location. Derek slowed their pace dramatically and sought help, but Hollis refused to stop. Disaster struck at mile 24. Hollis suddenly collapsed onto the hot asphalt, his body convulsing in seizure-like activity. His breathing became shallow and rapid, while his skin turned dangerously hot and dry. The classic signs of exertional heat stroke were unmistakable to the medical volunteers who rushed to his aid. Tina immediately began cooling efforts, applying ice packs to his groin, armpits, and neck while creating shade. However, the race lacked proper cooling equipment, and their efforts proved inadequate for such severe hyperthermia. Emergency medical services arrived quickly, but faced the same limitations. Paramedics started intravenous fluids and oxygen while continuing cooling measures during transport. Despite their best efforts, Hollis's core temperature remained dangerously elevated. The damage to his organs had already begun, with his kidneys, liver, and blood clotting systems starting to fail. At the hospital, emergency physicians worked frantically to save his life. Blood tests revealed rhabdomyolysis, acute kidney injury, and coagulopathy, all consistent with severe exertional heat stroke. Aggressive cooling protocols were implemented, but the multi-organ damage had progressed too far. Later that evening, surrounded by his devastated family, Hollis King was pronounced dead from exertional heat stroke and its complications. The man who had sought to prove his physical capabilities had instead become a victim of his own determination. The tragedy prompted immediate changes to the marathon safety protocols. Race organizers added cold water immersion tubs and implemented stricter heat illness monitoring. Far to the north, on the frozen waters of Wisconsin, another determined individual would soon discover that extreme cold could be just as deadly as scorching heat. It was January 14, 2018, when 31-year-old Linus Beck stepped onto the frozen surface of Lake Winnebago, determined to push human endurance to its absolute limits. The rugged auto mechanic from Green Bay had built a reputation among local anglers for his stubborn refusal to leave the ice, even when temperatures plummeted to dangerous levels. After losing his job at the local GM plant, he threw himself into ice fishing with obsessive dedication. Dr. Karen Wu, a 50-year-old family physician, combined her medical expertise with a genuine love for outdoor recreation, making her the perfect person to monitor Linus during his endurance attempt. Eddie Grant, a 27-year-old mechanic, had worked alongside Linus for 3 years, developing an unshakable loyalty to his mentor and friend. The plan seemed well conceived. Linus would remain in his insulated ice shanty for 48 consecutive hours, attempting to break the unofficial local record for continuous ice fishing. Eddie had helped prepare the shelter with extra insulation, a reliable propane heater, and emergency supplies. Weather conditions presented the first warning sign. Meteorologists predicted overnight temperatures dropping to -10 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chills approaching -28 degrees. The contest began at dawn, with Dr. Wu establishing regular check-ins and Eddie maintaining radio contact every 2 hours. As night fell, trouble emerged. Linus reported that his propane heater was functioning intermittently, likely due to regulator icing and low fuel pressure inside the frigid shanty. The temperature inside his shanty began fluctuating wildly, creating condensation that gradually dampened his clothing and sleeping gear. Eddie offered to replace the heater, but Linus insisted on continuing. The situation deteriorated rapidly during the early morning hours. Condensation had soaked his gloves and pant cuffs. His spare socks became damp from meltwater that had accumulated on the shanty floor. These seemingly minor issues would prove catastrophic. By hour 28, Dr. Wu noticed alarming changes during her radio check. Linus's speech had become noticeably slurred, and his responses seemed delayed and confused. His fine motor control was clearly compromised. These were classic early signs of hypothermia. Around hour 32, Linus's body entered the dangerous spiral of severe hypothermia. His intense shivering gradually decreased, a paradoxical sign that his body's warming mechanisms were failing. Instead of recognizing this as a medical emergency, Linus interpreted the reduced shivering as an adaptation to the cold. Eddie's attempts to reach Linus by radio at hours 34 and 36 went unanswered. Growing concerned, he and Dr. Wu decided to check on their friend personally. They found the shanty's exterior covered with thick frost, indicating dangerous conditions inside. When they entered at approximately hour 37, they discovered Linus lying motionless on his cot. His clothing had frozen stiff from accumulated moisture, a result of sub-zero air inside the shanty once the heater failed, and his skin felt dangerously cold. His breathing was barely perceptible, and they could not detect a pulse. Eddie and Dr. Wu immediately began emergency warming procedures while calling for paramedic assistance. They moved Linus to Eddie's heated truck, but his core body temperature was later measured at the medical center at approximately 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Emergency medical services arrived within 20 minutes, but the damage was irreversible. Paramedics confirmed severe hypothermia and initiated advanced cardiac life support protocols. Despite prolonged resuscitation efforts, Linus remained in a systole. At the medical center, the emergency team continued warming procedures and cardiac resuscitation for over an hour. Despite every available medical intervention, Linus Beck was pronounced dead from severe hypothermia and cardiac arrest. The tragedy prompted immediate changes to ice fishing contest regulations. Organizers implemented mandatory buddy systems, continuous heater monitoring, and temperature limits that would automatically end competitions. The frozen waters of Lake Winnebago had claimed another life in the relentless pursuit of personal achievement. Just months later in North Carolina, another determined individual would discover that even familiar activities can become lethal when pushed beyond reasonable limits. It was April 8, 2017, when 26-year-old Adelaide Quinn stood beneath the towering oak that would become her final challenge. The spirited outdoor education instructor had spent her career teaching children rock climbing at a local adventure camp in Asheville, North Carolina. Her fearless nature and infectious enthusiasm had made her beloved in the climbing community. But those same qualities would ultimately lead to her downfall. Adelaide discovered the massive oak during weekend explorations through the public park. Standing at 110 feet, the ancient tree represented everything she loved about vertical challenges. Her competitive background in collegiate rock climbing had instilled a deep need to push boundaries, and establishing a local height record seemed like the perfect showcase for her skills. Her sister Maya shared Adelaide's passion for the outdoors, but approached risks with more caution. The 30-year-old elementary school teacher possessed an organized mind that made her invaluable for coordinating the record attempt. Park Ranger Victor Ramos, a 36-year-old former military man, brought a methodical approach to safety and gradually approved Adelaide's climbing attempt as the park allowed technical tree ascents when reviewed and cleared by trained staff. Adelaide spent weeks analyzing the tree's structure, identifying load-bearing branches, and mapping her route. Victor conducted thorough inspections of her equipment. During practice sessions, Adelaide noticed a concerning detail at approximately 105 feet where her chosen anchor branch had produced an audible crack under partial loading. The branch appeared to hold, leading both Adelaide and Victor to conclude it remained structurally sound. On the morning of the record attempt, Adelaide moved with confidence while Maya documented every step and Victor positioned foam mats beneath the climbing zone. A small crowd gathered to witness what they hoped would be a historic achievement. Adelaide's ascent began flawlessly, showcasing her technical expertise. She utilized foot ascenders and belay assistance, using a standard single rope system appropriate for high tree climbs. At 85 feet, Adelaide paused to appreciate the spectacular view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Maya captured the moment on camera, unaware that it would be one of the last images of her sister alive. The final phase proceeded according to plan until Adelaide approached the 100-foot mark. The anchor branch, already compromised by previous loading cycles, began showing additional signs of stress. Victor noticed the developing situation and called for Adelaide to halt her ascent, but the warning came too late. The catastrophic failure occurred without warning. The anchor limb fractured completely at its connection point with the main trunk, instantly eliminating all support for Adelaide's top rope system. The sudden loss of protection left her in an uncontrolled fall through the tree's dense canopy. During her terrifying plummet, Adelaide's body collided with multiple branches at various heights. The impacts at multiple mid-canopy levels caused devastating trauma to her torso and extremities, including multiple fractures and severe internal injuries. The foam mats provided minimal protection against the tremendous forces generated by her high-altitude fall. Adelaide struck the ground with an impact that immediately silenced the gathered spectators. Victor rushed to her side and began CPR procedures, while Maya frantically called for emergency medical assistance. The responding paramedics quickly assessed her injuries, finding evidence of massive internal trauma. Despite aggressive resuscitation efforts, Adelaide's injuries proved incompatible with survival. The combination of multiple blunt force trauma, internal hemorrhaging, and suspected aortic damage had caused irreversible harm to her vital organs. She was pronounced dead at the scene, her dreams of inspiring others through adventure ending in tragedy. The investigation revealed that while the anchor branch had shown subtle warning signs, these indicators were insufficient to predict the catastrophic failure. The incident prompted immediate policy changes, requiring professional arborist assessments for all future tree climbing activities. Maya honored her sister's memory by donating Adelaide's climbing equipment to local outdoor education programs. A memorial plaque was installed at the base of the oak tree. Thanks for watching. Ready for more? Click the next video on your screen now.